Okay.
All rise. San Andreas District Court is now in session. The Honorable Judge Ruby York presiding.
All right. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated at this time. Thank you for coming to court. All right. Today we are here for the state of San Andreas versus Zeno Cioppa. Oh, I can't even say it.
Cioppa.
Cioppa. There we go. Zeno Cioppa. This is case number 21-18681. I'd like the prosecution and then the defense to state their names for the record.
Kennedy Cartwright for the state.
Natasha Clarkson for the defense.
All right, thank you. At this time, I'm going to ask the prosecution to read out the original charges first.
1 moment. Okay. The original charges were PC 3101, negligent discharge of a firearm/weapon in public, PC 3205, damage to private property, PC 3208, failure to obey a lawful order, PC 3104, threat of bodily harm, PC 2328, grand theft.
And Ms. Clarkson, how does your defendant plead to those charges?
Not guilty.
Okay. So it'll be shown on the court record that the 5 charges will be as not guilty. Prosecution, we're going to, do we need to open with opening statements, or is there something you'd like to bring forth?
Yes, the state and defendant have reached a plea deal that we would like to enter with the court.
And will the charges be remaining the same, or will they be changing?
They will be changing. The last 2 stated will be dropped off, the bodily harm threat and the grand theft. But the first 3 will be remaining.
Okay. So in regard to amended charges, would you read those? And I'll let the defendant enter a plea.
Yes. PC 3101, negligent discharge of a firearm weapon in public. PC 3205, damage to private property. PC 3208, failure to obey a lawful order.
And Ms. Clarkson, how does your defendant plead to those amended charges?
The defendant will plead guilty.
All right. Let the court record show that the defendant has entered a guilty plea for 3 charges. Ms. Cartwright, is there anything else from prosecution?
Yes, we have a unique sentencing that we have reached due to the situation with the defendant and feeling that the normal, what would it be? The normal sentencing of jail time doesn't quite do him justice for where his mental state is. So we've agreed to a 30-day program with LSFD for counseling and treatment, along with probation terms during those 30 days, and then a fine of $5,500.
Okay, so Mr. Cioppa has already served his time in Bolingbrook for the initial charges. So we are adding a 30-day program to those charges. Is that correct?
I guess
To that
since he's
time?
charged, we can maybe consider if we choose to not do the probation term, since he did do time, but it's mainly to allow him to find the mental help that he needs.
And defense, your opinion on this program?
We have no objections to the program.
Has this been discussed with LSFD?
They have been, we've attempted to involve them throughout this process.
Okay. But nothing as of yet?
Unfortunately, no. My attempts to correspond with the chief of EMS have been very sparing and in between, not on my part, I would like to add, but I am confident that they would be agreeable to such conditions.
What does the 30-day program entail, and how could the LSFD help facilitate this?
My plan was to draft up a request to them to be able to actually email the entirety of the LSFD and ask them to assign an EMS or a professional to his case, and to actually arrange meeting with him and discussing some of the things he's struggling with.
During the 30-day program, how many times would Mr. Cioppa be required to see a professional?
We've not set requirements mainly because of the fact that LSFD, we don't know their availability. And the main thing is that we want good faith on both sides to proceed with the program without necessarily locking in requirements that he attempts to meet with, maybe without LSFD's ability to actually fulfill.
Okay. It's very hard for me to agree to that portion of the deal because we do not have a member from LSFD here, and obviously they have not returned your emails, Miss Clarkson. I am more inclined to do for a better term, a parole with Mr. Cioppa, with some kind of requirement to see a professional a certain amount of times during that parole, since there is not really a 30-day program in our city.
I believe when I stated probation, I meant more like parole. That was
Okay.
just maybe a misthought.
Okay, all
I think
right.
that's maybe, if you're more comfortable wording it a certain way, then that would be, I think, fine. And then if we can get in touch with LSFD, because I have been made aware that they would like to be more involved. I'm just not sure if maybe we're not reaching the right people.
Can I ask why? Why this type of program for this individual? Why this kind of arrangement?
So through the entire incident report and discussing, there was definitely some things he's struggling with some kind of mental lapses that have caused him to get to this point. I believe obviously they can speak better to it, in entirety.
Okay.
Problem was that we couldn't get the full mental evaluation prior.
Miss Clarkson, maybe you could answer that for me, please.
Yes, absolutely. The main point of my case would have hinged on a mental evaluation that I was not able to secure because of differences in schedules. But based on the incident report, testimony that I'm sure that we were bound to hear had this trial proceeded, even if you had read the exhibits themselves, they make mention of my client shooting at things that other people in the area could not see, being shot at by a man with an AK that Lieutenant Boscarelli could not see. Even Lieutenant Boscarelli, per his own admission in the report, mentions that this man seems unwell, yet there were no attempts made to get him any kind of medical aid or evaluation. I do not believe that these are the acts of a person who is simply intending to do wrong with a criminal mindset, but rather somebody who is experiencing demons that we cannot see. And because I cannot prove that with evaluation that did not happen, this seems like the best recourse. I think regardless of jail time, my client deserves some sort of recognition by our mental health department.
Okay, is Mr. Boscarelli here?
He is.
Your Honor.
Mr. Boscarelli, would you come stand next to the state prosecutor? I have a question for you. So I've read the incident report. Would you agree, based on the situation that you encountered Mr. Cioppa in, would you agree with the Miss Clarkson was saying about shooting at nothing?
Not entirely, ma'am.
Could you speak to the situation of Mr. Cioppa shooting? Would you tell me what you saw when you approached?
When I approached on scene of San Andreas, I observed an individual firing a pistol in the air. Off the top of my head, I can't remember what he was saying. But once I was able to get him apprehended, he stated multiple times that he was shooting seagulls that were trying to steal his food that he just ordered from the burger shop. I believe he made reference that he was a sergeant, I believe. He used to be in the military. I used to be in the military as well. I was actually a medic in the military, and I've dealt with my fair share of patients who've had mental health injuries related to OSIs, as well as like PTSD, all that stuff. And just, it didn't seem similar. If there were, yeah, I didn't seem similar at all.
Were there seagulls?
There could have been. I mean, we're right down the beach. Could have been seagulls, absolutely.
All right. All right. Thank you, Mr. Boscarelli. Is Miss Tuckerman here? The other witness?
Yes, Your Honor.
Would you mind standing? Yeah, thank you, Mr. Boscarelli. Would you mind coming and standing next to the state prosecutor, please? Just be aware that both Boscarelli and Tuckerman are law enforcement officers, so therefore the incident report is seen as a sworn affidavit. Ms. Tuckerman, what did you witness when you pulled up on scene and you saw Mr. Zeno Cioppa?
Firstly, Your Honor, I'd like to just clarify that I am not a law enforcement officer. I was just at the location when the incident.
Yeah, she's just a
Just
civilian.
a civilian. Okay. Would you mind just swearing her in for just a moment, please? I just have a question for her. Thank you so much. I know this is a little unorthodox. I'm not sure what's going on back there. So, would you like to leave the courthouse?
Raise the hand for me, please.
Who talk to me?
You solemnly swear the testimony you're about to give is the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth? So
No,
help you God?
no. I'm talking about one moment. I'm talking about the individual in the very back on my left. I don't know what you're doing back there, sir, but you don't do that in the courthouse, all right?
I'm sorry, Your Honor, we're handling it.
Thank you. If gentlemen at the back, if you need, 1 block away is a Pink Cage motel. I'm sure you could get a room.
I have one over there, actually.
Right. Well, good luck there, sir. Good luck.
My hands free.
Just escort that man outside, please. Thank you.
I can walk outside, thank you. Oh, why you? I can walk, man. I have legs. Why you grabbing me like?
Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. There was some very unsightly things to be seen. All right, Miss Tuckerman, I did not realize that you're a civilian. For some reason, I thought you were also an officer. Where were you at the time when you saw Mr. Zeno Cioppa?
I was inside the restaurant when he first arrived. I was there already.
All
I
right.
was there as a customer.
Did you see what Mr. Cioppa was shooting at?
No, Your Honor, there didn't appear to be anything there. Seagulls, birds, likewise, so I was not able.
Okay, all right. Did you speak to Mr. Cioppa at all?
I did briefly inside. He had stated, I don't know if it's relevant, but he he had stated that he had been drinking, I guess intoxicated, from earlier in the day. He was very, I don't know the best word to describe it, kind of rude and vulgar inside, and eventually left. And then he took his vehicle that he came in, drove around the building, either intentionally or unintentionally, crashed it into the other entranceway to the restaurant. He got out and then he began to fire his weapon just kind of erratically in the air at surrounding buildings. He ran off for a short period of time and eventually he circled back around to the front of Burger Shot on St. Andreas where he had crashed his vehicle, and he was shouting at some birds, I guess. He kept telling me to take cover from the birds. And then that was really about it. And then Mr. Boscarelli arrived on scene and
All right. Thank you, Miss Tuckerman. You may be seated at this time. Okay. This is a little unorthodox, but in order for me to agree to this, I just needed a little bit of background on exactly what was going on. Just give me 1 second here to check my notes. The only caveat to this would be the fact that we do not have a response from LSFD. So I believe prosecution in good faith, of course, dropping 2 charges down to the 3 charges, that it would be better if Mr. Cioppa is placed on probation or parole for the next 30 days or until Miss Clarkson is able to make contact with LSFD and for arrangements to be made, and that Mr. Cioppa is actually remanded into her care until such contact can be made. That really would be my suggestion.
Could you clarify what you mean by my care, just so I'm aware of what my duties would be?
Your duties would be that you are legally responsible within the next 30 days to make contact with LSFD. Of course, a copy of this court docket will be sent to them directly, but to set up said appointments with someone at LSFD.
Understood.
Yeah. So, and then once that is done, you'd be able to contact the court and let us know. State prosecutor, what do you have any thoughts?
I'm in agreement to those terms.
Is your defendant in agreement to those terms?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So, Mr. Zeno Cioppa, in regard to PC 3101, negligent discharge of a firearm weapon in public, PC 3205, damage to private property, and PC 3208, failure to obey a lawful order, your plea of guilty has been accepted by the court. You will be remanded into the quote-unquote care of your attorney, Miss Clarkson, who will be making contact with LSFD to arrange within the next 30 days for a minimum of 3 to 5 appointments with a medical care professional at Pillbox Hospital. Once that has been established, Miss Clarkson will let the court know. At this time, I believe that we have come to an agreement and court is adjourned.